Welcome back. It's time again for another Metal Based Monday. So before we get started this week, I want to recommend a channel you definitely need to check out. Info card up here, but you go and check out Everything Bass with Dale Titus. Dale is an awesome teacher, an amazing bassist. It's someone that I knew from Musicians Institute. He was a teacher while I was there. And apparently this guy is putting together the Technique and Chops Library of Alexandria. His output is just absolutely stunning. You could go down a complete rabbit hole checking out the channel. So if you're looking to build your chops, start getting pieces together on everything from slapping to tapping to understanding the neck, it's an incredible resource. I genuinely don't know how he's putting out this material this fast. And he has a Patreon account there too. So if you have a minute, drop a little something in the tip jar. It will probably go to very good use feeding the methamphetamines he must be taking to spend weeks upon end with no sleep putting out this level of content. So, Meth for Dale, it's a cause. Jump on in. But check it out. And yeah, pop back in and let me know what you learned from Dale, because I know I learned a lot from him during my time. So although this is obviously Metal Based Monday, a topic that somebody brought up in the comments, and I had gotten questions about it in different avenues, that I thought we could address and is important because eventually, no matter what you're doing bass-wise, these are things that are going to confront you if you're going to try and take this to a professional level. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get into bands, how to start getting yourself out there, what the important things are to focus on, because the music industry has changed so much, and a lot of people aren't acknowledging how different it is from what we're expected to do in the beginning stages. And then talk about the logistics of and how real it is being able to make a living as a metal bassist or in the music industry in total. So first, if you're at the beginning level and you're looking to start your first bands or you want to join them or anything, I recommend as much as possible making personal contacts. Now, I know we live in the internet age and you can put a ton of stuff out there, and that's great, and it's definitely something to do, put up videos of yourself, that type of thing. But as much as possible, try and find some kind of community. And I realize that's tougher than it used to be because people don't just go out to shows anymore just to hang out. It's become less and less every year that I've seen it that people will go out just to be around other people or other musicians in a community. But if you can find places where other metal fans, other people are, and try and make those initial friendships and bonds and that type of thing, because one mistake a lot of players make, and I made this early on a lot, and it definitely cost me, I think, is thinking that if you spend all your time in isolation and just shredding away and doing your stuff, that eventually somehow by magic somebody's going to recognize it, or you're going to wait until you're finally at this one level where all of a sudden then you'll just know that you're ready to be exposed to the world, and you'll go out and try and do it, and it's going to be a lot harder than you think. And the other thing is, everything in life comes down to relationships, and being in music is no different. You have to cultivate them. I can't tell you how many times these strange, like rocks going into a pond and the ripples going out have come back in ways that I never saw coming. Just playing or jamming with one person that, just was an offhand thing. I set up at their place one day, we went over a couple covers, had a couple beers or something, and then I've done pro spot after pro spot after pro spot, thinking these were going to benefit me. 5 years down the road, I get a call from someone I barely remember, and this is the guy I jammed with, and he needs someone to sit in on a tour. And because I made a difference in being willing to sit in with him when he wasn't somebody, he remembered me from that period and thought, this is a guy that's cool and I can be on the road with him and get along. I get a call 5 years later and it's a no audition thing. It's, I know what you're capable of. Do you want to do this? Jump in. You'd be amazed how often that happens. And just learning to say yes constantly to things. Put yourself out there. And what you have to keep in mind all the time, and this comes down to everything, is that you are going to become a brand. You're going to have a look, you're going to have a sound, you're going to have an approach. There's going to be an entity that you create that's you, that comes across in every avenue of what you do, and you're cultivating it every single time you meet somebody or you play with somebody or you put something online, and you need to be conscious of it. You need to always be pushing forward what makes you different. Because if you're not different, go on YouTube, go on TikTok, go on any social media site, and look at the ocean of people out there all doing the same thing you're doing. And why is it most of them are never being heard of again, or they're all these bedroom shredders that do these amazing things, but somehow we never see them in a band, they never seem to go anywhere? It's because they're wearing the same clothes, they're playing the same songs, they're doing the same riffs, they're filming in the same aspect that's in at that moment. Everything about them is the same thing. And people are impressed for that minute, and then they swipe. And they go back into the ocean. It's like catching a trophy fish. Hey, it looks great. Throw them back in. It never goes anywhere. So you have to, more than ever, and I think this is an ironic benefit of things being so oversaturated, is being original now matters more than anything else. Because nobody's going to remember the guy who was really awesome, but just like someone else. It just doesn't stand out. And it's too easy to find that guy. The standouts are the ones who are doing anything now. And that's what's going to be crucial. So when you do get started and go to join or form bands or things, your temptation might be, and it can still be a good idea, maybe film yourself doing a cover in the style or something great. Show your technical skills, do something that people are familiar with. But what you want to focus on the most is showing a part of yourself and something that's unique to you. Because at the end of the day, a band, unless you're doing a tribute band or something, is going to be going off originals and things, and they want to find that rock star musician that's going to be their ideal when they plug them into that spot. If, Metallica were being formed today or something, it would be so obvious why they picked Cliff Burton. When they went to see him in a bar, and he was just so outrageous, and in a lot of ways really didn't fit Metallica. The dress, the way he, looked, and the way he sounded and everything. He was a much more forward bass player, but he stood out so much. That's why they actively pursued him and wanted him in the band, because he was individual and stood out amongst everyone else. Even someone who didn't seem to fit right away, they made it fit, because having someone original was so important. And that's what you need to make out of yourself. And that goes in every aspect. But the other part about if you're just getting started or if you're going into bands and that type of thing, is play as much as possible. Play with other people. And that's something that's getting lost, and it's really hurting a lot of bands, is that they come up practicing in isolation and they don't even really know what it's like to play long-term or rehearse really steadily with a group of musicians and get really solid and gelled together as a unit until they're trying to be on the road for the first time, and that's not the time to do it. I'm not trying to cut down on any of these amazing musicians that I see in videos and things, but they've only mastered one part of it. And being able to perform in a studio, at a gig, in a rehearsal space, and really gel and be part of a unit is absolutely crucial. And you're just not going to get that if you spend all your time by yourself and don't put in that time of just woodshedding with other people. And it also teaches you that things aren't going to be perfect. When you're practicing by yourself, you have a controlled environment. It's a hermetically sealed chamber where you can always do your best and recut and everything, learning that things go wrong and that you can't hear yourself, and then your amp doesn't work and your sound sounds like crap, and for some reason standing with your strap feels completely different and now you can't play right, or it's too hot and it's, your hands are getting clammy, and all those things that are the real life stuff. That's what you learn to start being able to soldier through by jamming and playing with other players, and it makes your timing better, your feel different, and how you negotiate playing with feel while having to deal with somebody else's field. Where do you fit into that? It takes a lot of control away from you and forces you to be able to adapt to the field. And it is battle going into it. On the stage, in a rehearsal space, whatever it is, you are fighting with a ton of elements that are all conspiring to screw up your performance. Learning how to be that Navy SEAL takes time in the field. So if you're trying to start a band, for the 3 points, get out and meet other people. You'd be amazed how much this stuff can come back to you later. Look at it as planting seeds. Don't be so all-intensive about trying to get that immediate back. What's going to get me something right away? I realize most people anymore have, the attention span of a ferret that's just had a triple espresso or something, but you've got to be more patient and allow yourself to just put things out there and wait for some of it to come back, because trust me, it will. Get yourself out there, make personal, in-person contacts. None of this always over Facebook, always over Messenger crap. Be in person with people. That's what's going to make you memorable. 2 is develop a presence for yourself. Know what you're good at. Know what you want to be seen as, and start putting that forward. And you have to be courageous about it. It's hard at times to stand up and go, I deserve to be noticed. But it's, even if you have to go with the old adage, fake it till you make it. Be that person that's in your head. Put yourself forward and present yourself that way. If you don't believe enough in yourself to be able to enact this person or this artist or this musical vision that you have, you can't ask anybody else to believe in it. You're the creator of it and you don't believe it. So you've got to step into those shoes and just go, this is the outfit I want to wear for life, so I'm going to start buttoning up the shirt now. Get into that, create your identity, create your brand, and do it from the word go. And then 3 is go into social media, do all of your videos, do your other stuff, but make sure what you're presenting is consistent all the time. Don't slack off. Don't do what you see everybody else doing and try and fit into it. Make sure you're being you all the time, every time. It's tempting, and sometimes you get bored of doing it, or today you just don't feel like putting the whole presentation together or whatever. That's all there is out there. With social media, with videos, things like that, it's all a presentation. Be that person all the time. It's going to make a humongous difference in when people see you. They know who you are. They know what you're going to deliver. And when you find the people that click with that, you'll absolutely be grateful that you presented it, because they went, that's the guy. That's the one who gets it. That's the guy I resonate with. Rather than the same concert shirt, same, whatever it is that everybody else is doing. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I mean, t-shirt and jeans here. But if you're presenting yourself as an artist, your playing has to reflect who you want to be, your attitude, your presentation, everything about it. So figure that out. Get that guy in your head out and into real life. That's going to make a humongous difference. That's going to be everything about joining a band and going forward. But so since we covered joining a band, let's talk about the next step in it. And that's going to be, the bad news is it's becoming an increasingly impossible goal. And by that, I don't mean that you can't have a career in the arts or doing music somewhat, but making money off of music and supporting yourself it's brutal. And you've got to be incredibly committed to it to make it work. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I could go into a really long video and a long rant about how the music industry's changed and how people take advantage of artists in a lot of ways, and especially refusing them support while taking their work. It's more punitive than ever now. More is expected out of an artist for less reward than there ever has been in history. You have a greater access to an audience, but even the audience at this point has to start taking some responsibility for the fact that, artists are starving to a big degree while having to meet higher and higher expectations all the time with nothing to keep them going. So with that negativity out of the way, Here's some thoughts on getting very real, and I hope you take these things to heart that I didn't always want to hear them, but they've borne themselves out and definitely go under the category of things I wish I knew earlier. One is, if you want to make a living off of music, you have to realize it's a business. Period. You can be as pure about your art as you want to, all these other things, but the fact of the matter is it's a business. And business means you have to make choices that make financial sense. You can't just always do things because it's what feels good or, is what strikes you at the minute. That's a hobby. That's something you do impulsively. A career means you have to be single-minded about it. And the other part of this is that because most of us aren't getting label support, we're not getting tour support, we're not getting album sales, we're not getting basically anything coming in to help us forward in this, and also not being on labels for a lot of us, while it's a great benefit in a lot of ways, you have to realize that you are the label now, which means you have to make those financial decisions, and you have to be the person who controls the branding, the advertising, the bookkeeping, everything that goes into it, you have to handle. And if you're not ready to do that, or it's not something you want to do, keep it a hobby. You're setting yourself up for a lot of pain. If you want to do it, there's great rewards to be had. But if it's something you genuinely just can't stomach, and I've known guys like this, they're phenomenal players and everything, but the slightest hint of doing something that wasn't 100% playing music at that second, they just could not get themselves to do it. Every one of them failed. Every time, because if you want reward for what you're putting out there, you have to realize it's a business. If not, just play and put up YouTube videos, and that's totally cool. But if you're looking at making a career out of it, then you have to take it seriously. And like with any business, you're not going to get to do what you want all the time. And you're going to have to do a lot of studying and realizing that the fans are the people you're going to have to address and do things for. Now, the upside of this is that, ironically, having to meet a fan's need means being more original than ever. Like we just talked about with branding and that type of thing and being original, it matters so much because now that everybody has access, whereas you used to have the labels being gatekeepers and keeping distribution down to just their brand that they selected, and you're going to hear this on the radio, everybody's out there, but it also means everybody's out there. So the only possible way for you to stick out is to have an original statement. And that's a mistake I see so many bands making anymore, is they see one band actually start to make it somewhere, and because it's so hard, they're like, oh my God, that's the formula. And they start running out trying to duplicate it. That's a dead man's move. It's the second you do it, and the second you bite off of somebody else's thing, you're always going to be, even if you get some success, the B level. You're not going to be the A level in your category, and that's what you want. By being original is the only way out of this massive sea of blue fish that you're going to be the red one that somebody notices. And that's what it's going to take to actually get some attention. I know it's tempting to try and go along in a certain direction, but you're really going to have to focus on what does your band have as a message, what's your sound, make it all your ideal, because you're going to have to love it to have this level of dedication to it. But if you're going to go for it, you've got to make it as individual as possible. And the reason being original matters more than anything now is where it used to be with labels and things, and when we had a more constricted industry, you wanted to try and appeal to the record buying public as much as possible. You're trying to sweep up as much as possible. That's impossible now. But having a global audience that you can tap into, even if you're a very niche, weird, experimental project, you may only get a few fans here and there all over the globe, but they add up. It's easier than ever to find the weirdos. And to make a viable living, feeding a corner that's not getting dealt with, that's not getting touched, and people who aren't getting enough of the music that they want, if they have eclectic tastes, you can gather them together. You become the king of that kingdom. And ironically, that's more what you want to do now. Find your niche and exploit the hell out of it. Become the master of your own genre. Stop trying to compete with other already established masters in a genre that you have no chance at rising to the top in because of the amount of other people trying to do it. The late, great David Bowie said that that was his thing and why he never feared putting out an album like one that he made in a German bunker that's almost all instrumental and had no hits on it. He said that he realized that there were enough strange people out in the world that they would get it, and that there were enough of them if he just made sure people found it, that he could still make enough money to support his albums. And quite obviously, he was proven correct. The man was an iconoclast to the last and had a career that made an entire planet mourn his passing. So he's absolute proof that this idea works. So if you're going to go into this and if you're going to try and make a living off of it, then again, it's going to come into handling that business, finding your niche, analyzing that niche, really getting into the business end of it so you know how to take what's original about you and exploit the hell out of it. Those couple of points are going to be the biggest overall guiding things about how to make money, which is kind of ironic that being as original as possible is the way you sell out. A couple of warnings about this that I really feel are kind of pertinent too is that you're going to have to get a thick skin. One of my problems with the state of the music business right now actually isn't with the industry. A lot of it's with fans. And fans are being particularly brutal with artists right now in that they have incredible expectations of them while not really giving them a lot of reward. They don't buy albums. They don't want to pay high ticket prices to keep a tour going. They won't buy merch if it's past a certain point to support. And they don't realize that, this takes money keeping this machine going. And people aren't making the kind of money that they have this illusion that these artists are. I mean, let's take a quick example of a metal band like, let's say, Testament. Testament is a legendary thrash band. They arguably were one of the founders of thrash and speed metal. They came out of the Bay Area movement. They were around at the time of Metallica and Exodus and that huge explosion going on. These guys have been consistently flying the flag, putting out great albums decade after decade. They're legends. Arguably, some people have said should have been taken Anthrax's place in the Big Four. Now, a band like that you would think has legendary status, they should never have a problem making money, things like that. On the last tour, Alex Skolnick was selling guitar lessons that he would do in the green room or sometimes right out in the open before Testament show to make money. That should tell you something. If these guys are that well off, they're not going to bother to sit there and take the time they would normally have to warm up or to eat a decent dinner or to call their loved ones or anything else and give it away to a paying customer for a guitar lesson. They're not making the kind of money most people think. And if a band of that stature and of that legendary notice is out there doing guitar lessons to make ends meet, you got to realize you're not in that position. So you're going to have to do a lot of things to keep your machine going. The reason I give the warning about this is the second you do this type of stuff, there's going to be this purist bunch of jackasses in the community that are going to say things like, you sold out, or you're just about money, or you're just about this. And you're going to have to learn, screw them and ignore them. Because these are people who feed off of telling you how you should martyr yourself in some way to make them happy. That for some reason your music's only good if they think you're suffering or something. And it's gross. It really is. But they're out there, and you're going to see them a lot. These are the first people to complain about paid meet and greets, things like that. They always want to throw up an immediate flag of, you shouldn't have to pay to meet an artist. And it's like, yeah, and an artist shouldn't have to go bankrupt playing for your pleasure. But here we are. You got to get a thick skin. You got to realize you're going to be called that. And that's the other thing about not having the labels and not having the money coming in from the sales of music and things is that you're going to have all those people who used to be able to handle things like, having an A&R department, having an advertising group, having people handling your album cover, because the label isn't there and giving you that support and taking it out off of your hands so you can just create. You have to do that now. So you're wearing a lot of hats, and you're going to have to realize you're going to have to not just be the artist, but then at the end of that session, take off the hat and become the businessman. And you're going to have to handle what all those departments used to do for artists to get them going. And it's a lot of work. But if somebody's going to throw the word sell out at you, just remember that that person is getting the benefits of 90% of what you do for free. And they can suck it. So I know I'm saying some rough things here, but trust me, these are brutal lessons I've learned and have affected my career, my last band, and the reason why it just is a recording project and why I don't tour anymore with it. These are all things and hard choices that came down and things I experienced myself. The other thing is going back to the thick skin. You have to realize that being the sole entity, you're going to take the hits. And things have gotten nasty out there. There's people who love to attack just to attack, people who want to call you a sellout, people who are just looking to try and tear down anybody trying to do something. And you're going to have to get supreme faith in your North Star and say, you damn right I'm doing business because I want to be able to do this for the long haul. And I have something to offer. And the only way I can do it is if I can pay my rent or I can keep food on my table. And what you don't want to wind up as is those bands that always come up on Blabbermouth or Metal Injection or something. They say, this band just broke up. And everybody goes, oh my God, I just heard about this band. They're fantastic. And I've seen this comment repeatedly. Why is it every time I hear about a new great band, they've just broken up? Well, maybe it's time to look in the mirror. You're not giving these bands the support they need to keep going. So you have to make smart business decisions so that despite the industry and some, fans even, best efforts, you don't get taken down. You have to build some security in for yourself. What that's going to mean, unfortunately, is, like I said, not always doing what you want to do, which is, I know everybody would love to tour, everybody would love to play out a lot. Until you have a presence and an audience, it's not like it used to be. And people tell you all the time, this is the worst piece of advice you'll get. You got to play out constantly. You got to keep doing shows that, start building an audience. People don't just show up anymore for unknown bands. It's just not a thing. You're going to play the same clubs over and over and over again if you're trying to build an audience just by doing that. I wish it were different, because that's how bands become really good. But expanding your audience and actually drawing things, it's mostly going to come from video, social media, that type of thing. When I stopped pushing myself as hard at trying to get shows and going through, not getting paid or going home in the hole after you count in gas and all this other stuff, I realized most of the time I gathered a couple of friends, maybe sold a couple t-shirts, things like that. I can look over a few years of playing and realized it did basically nothing for me. Everything I achieved was through maybe one or two special shows or, times I got to open for somebody who already had a larger audience, and doing video and getting things across. You have to build that audience first, and that's why your brand and things like that become so important. The shame of it is that, again, you're not really going to get good for when that tour opportunity finally does come without doing those shows and playing a lot. So what this means in the end is it's really such a blank field. Nobody's really figured out the next moves yet. You can be that one who figures this stuff out. It's time to innovate. So always be looking to solve a problem. Don't keep wearing down the same things that end up in failure that people have been doing for ages and have become outdated ideas. One thing that I think is powerful, especially for young bands coming up, is the idea of going back to the house party. it seems like that's, again, become a lost concept, and this is how some of the most famous rock bands in history got started, because they created their own audience rather than going out to a club and begging for one. A fantastic example is going to be Van Halen. They weren't getting bookings at these world famous clubs they were known for playing at later, like the Whiskey, the Roxy, things like that. They got started throwing house parties in Pasadena, California. These parties got so large that people were abandoning their cars a half-mile away to be able to make it to this party. The police were having to call in helicopters to shut down the parties because the squad cars couldn't even get close. That's powerful. You've got a hell of an audience, and if you can build that and then take that to a club, that's amazing. You're going to level up in your career right away. So throw on events yourself. Do things with people who want to create an experience, things like that. That's just one idea that somebody's already done but seems to be lost. But it's going to take innovation, and you want to figure out ways to play live and to do it, because not only is it just what we live for half the time, but it's important to get that live time in. So when the big tour does happen, or you can get into the bigger clubs and you can put on a show, you've got that experience to just kill. And it's not you up there learning when you should be doing, and really just not coming across as professional. Or the worst case scenario, at least in my opinion, is you wind up like all these bands that are out using tracks now and everything and just miming their performances because they can't figure out how to be able to perform and play at the same time and do both effectively, because they've been in their bedroom or on video most of the time and they have no touring experience at all. So again, innovate, come up with some ideas. Everything changes, so when things are in flux, it's hard, but it also means it's open to the next revolution, and you might be the person with the next idea. So just throw stuff at the wall. You never know what's going to stick. Half the time it's the idea you think's going to go nowhere. Always be plugging away. That's the surest path to victory. Don't be afraid to fail. If you're not failing, if you're not having ideas that just fall on their face, you're not learning, and you're not chipping away at that rock that has success at the core in it. So be relentless and go at it. So that's a long one for today, but I hope there was some information and some things that you could get out of it. That's another Metal Bass Monday. Again, definitely check out my friend Dale's channel at Everything Bass, info card again. And I will see you next week. Hit me in the comments. You got stuff you want to argue about, you want to agree, you want to add in. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm sure some of these new ideas that are going to come out are going to maybe even pop up in the comments to this video here. So bring it on. I got a tough skin. Don't worry about it. So until next Monday, I'll see you then.